Hello, good afternoon. Hiya.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hiya. I'm Rian. Hiya. Nice meeting you.
So there's just two of us sitting here if we get any questions on our presentation, Rayanne.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll pop us on mute, okay?
Okay. Can I just check with you one thing? When I'm sharing now the screen, do you see the notes? Can I just check that? So hold on now. I'm sharing this here now. Presenter view. Do you see the notes as well or not?
On the side, the next
Yeah.
slide, yeah.
Yes.
Is it better not to do it like that then, is it?
Yes.
Shall I just do the save? I'll end that now, just practice. So I'll do the share.
You've got our video that I think Anna said that she was going to be playing with the second one on.
All right. You don't want me to share this screen then?
Well, we recorded our presentation that I sent to Anna, and I think you were going to play the video, and then if there's any questions.
Oh, sorry. I think I'm not part of the. I'm a guest speaker as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, sorry, Rianne. I saw staff, so.
Oh, I see. So
yeah.
We're
a bit early, but we've recorded our presentation.
Oh, that's
they're
good.
just going to play, I hope.
We hope.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's much better, isn't it? I should have done that. Oh,
well, that's what I read, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, there was an option, I think. So I went for the other one, and I'm thinking back now. I think I should have done the other. Never mind.
We'll wait for Anna to join. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'll
Okay, I'm just warming everybody up. I've acknowledged to our partners online that we're running slightly late. But my intention is to kick us off in a couple of minutes, if that's okay. Got enough headsets on their table because Rhian will be doing her presentation in Welsh. So it would be important for people to have headsets if you need it.
I have a question.
If you haven't got enough,
I don't know your name.
reach out and we'll.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, Anna, on Anna's machine? No, he can't hear me. Why can't he hear me?
I can hear you, but yeah, he can't hear us yet. Okay. Or perhaps the monitor isn't on. So the sound isn't on, perhaps.
Just remind people online, could we make sure that microphones and cameras are switched off unless you're presenting? And when you're presenting, obviously you will need them on, but when you're not presenting, if we could leave them off, that would be great. It just stops some confusion in the technical department, which would be good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed what was yet again another good lunch, and thank you for that. And I hope everybody partook of the traditional puddings because they were absolutely lovely. So thank you for that. So as I said earlier, we're going into bite size now. This is where my watch tells me that my heart rate goes up because we need to make sure that we stick to time and that we move things through on a regular basis. It's got a bold on my paper here, need to keep to time. Erin, who is a clinical specialist physiotherapist for Falls in Powys, is going to be our first presenter.
Online, so I've got a pre-recorded presentation.
Okay, so we're going to do that online. This is live, isn't it? It's good, isn't it, when it's live? So there is a pre-recorded presentation now for Erin, and we're just going to sort that out, and then we'll move that forward, if that's okay. Let me know when you're ready, Anna. No pressure.
Anna.
Oh, got a lot of people. What's it who answer? Mid Wales Joint Committee. Yeah.
specialist physiotherapist working in Powys Teaching Health Board, specialising in falls and frailty. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the new falls assessment referral and intervention process that we've been developing over the last year or so. So the presentation today will give a little bit of background on what we've been working on to date, why we've been driving this change, what's prompted the change, and also look at the new processes that we are trying to put in place for falls referrals and assessments at the Health Board, as well as other vision going forward, what other innovations we'd like to make, and then there will be time at the end, I think, for any questions or feedback you might have on any of those. So just to give a bit of context and background to today's presentation, statistics show that 1 in 3 individuals over 65 is at risk of suffering at least one fall a year, and this figure rises to 1 in 2, so half of our population of over 80s. There's lots of issues around the cost of falls, not just financially. The sort of social and emotional cost is also huge and quite detrimental. Something like 20% of individuals who suffer hip fractures as a result of falling will end up in a long-term care facility within a year of that fall. So the NICE guidelines recommend that all individuals who are over 65 and in contact with a healthcare professional should be asked whether they have fallen or whether they're worried about falling over. If they're identified as being at risk of falls or worried about falls, then they should be offered a multifactorial falls risk assessment and multifactorial interventions as appropriate. So that's as per the NICE guidelines. So pre-COVID in the Health Board, a nurse-led face-to-face clinic was offered for falls assessments. During the pandemic, obviously a lot of these face-to-face services were suspended, and that was seen as an opportunity for us to review what was happening across the county and how that might be improved. What we found was that there were huge variations in terms of what was being offered in different localities. Some clinics were very efficient, well run, well attended. Similarly with the interventions, the Confident Strides programme, etc. In other areas, clinics were a little bit less regular, a bit more ad hoc, and not so well attended, and in other localities there was nothing specific offered at all, and the falls assessments were carried out on an as and when basis by district nurses. So huge variations, not a lot of equality of service across the whole area serviced by the Health Board. Also post-COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty of who to refer to for a falls assessment now, as many of those clinics were suspended and never actually restarted following the pandemic. So the project started there really with that sort of overview of where we were pre-COVID, and we decided it was a good opportunity to have a look at what improvements we could make. On the basis of that research and being mindful of the NICE guidelines, the main aims we had, or we have, for this service going forward is to generally be more proactive than reactive. So raise awareness of the risks of falls, make it everybody's responsibility. So rather than pigeonholing it to one staff group, we thought, how can we make the most of existing services and existing relationships with patients that staff might have to make sure that they receive a timely service for this patient group. This also sort of fits in with the logistical issues of working in a very rural area. I think some of the problems reported from patients were difficulty getting transport into clinic. So we were thinking about how we can use new digital resources to sort of bridge those gaps in geography. We want to increase education, not just of staff groups, but also of carers, patients themselves, and the wider public about the identification of potential risks at the earliest point of need. We'd like to reduce waiting times and repetition, so save patients having to go over the same story again and again and again. How can we make that process a bit more efficient, and really just ensure that we deliver a quality of service across the health board? So make sure that you're not benefiting from your postcode in terms of assessment and intervention. Part of our plan was to have a single point of access for all falls referrals. So all GPs, healthcare professionals, patients, relatives have one place to refer to via one method. So we've developed an online referral form which will be accessible via the website, the patient-facing website, but also accessible to all your healthcare professionals that you might be involved with. If an individual has suffered a fall or expressed a fear of falling to a relative, carer, healthcare professional, they can fill in the form online, a very quick, easy form, doesn't require any kind of medical training. That referral will automatically be received to a single point of access email address, which is triaged weekly. So we have that nice single point of access where we will hold all those falls referrals. The next step in the process is that the referral mailbox will be checked weekly by admin. We're then going to ask that admin to cross-check those details with what's already on our data systems within the health board. And what we're looking for is, are these people already involved with different services in the community? So that might be community therapies, for example, physio, OT, it might be district nurses. And what we're going to attempt to ask our staff to do, if the patient is open and active with the team, we're going to request that that team carries out the multifactorial falls risk assessment, or MFA, with the patient next time they see them. So what we're trying to do there is reduce them waiting on another list, tap into relationships that already exist between the patient and the staff members that are seeing them, and have it done at point of need, rather than, like I say, waiting weeks on another waiting list. We've created an app, which I'll talk about afterwards. So the previous assessment form was long and a bit off-putting for staff. So what we've tried to do is use an app that streamlines the assessment, makes it a little bit more user-friendly for staff and patient alike. If the patient is completely new to the organisation, we're having a weekly MDT, multidisciplinary team meeting, where we will allocate the referral to a team to go out and do with the patient. So as I briefly outlined, when the team gets a notification to complete the MFA, the multifactorial risk assessment, they'll have 10 days to make contact at minimum. They will be able to do it via an app, face-to-face with the person in their home. They'll also be able to do it over the phone or via Attend Anywhere if appropriate. Once it's done, it takes about half an hour. It gets submitted online, and that assessor will then make any potential interventions that are signposted by the app. So it's a signposting tool. It's looking at the main areas of risk and which areas that the patient may benefit from intervention from. This slide is just a couple of screenshots of what the app will look like as it's rolled out to staff. They're in the middle of piloting it now, so we're getting some good feedback of the functionality of our online app. So as I've said, it's currently being piloted. We are going live for new referrals in January. Future plans include including the third sector and social services in the assessment process. And like I said, patients will be able to self-refer, which is a new thing for falls, via the same online form that healthcare professionals would be using. Initial feedback on the pilot has been really positive from patients. And like I say, the outcome data will help us provide a picture of what's helpful and target future development as we go forward.
One question, if anyone has a question on that. No, anything online? Tom, did you want to ask a question online?
Yes, please, if I may, Peter. You mentioned the falls assessment app and the data put in by the professional. How will that data be integrated into the patient's record?
Hi, Tom. When you submit the outcome of your assessment via the app, it generates a patient a summary of the responses, which automatically gets emailed to the assessor. And what we're planning on doing in terms of recording that is it creates a PDF that we're planning to upload to WCCIS as an attachment. The app itself also retains a record of the outcome of the assessment for patients. So should someone wish to go back and check something, it's stored within the app. That information is accessible via request at the moment. We're not letting everybody get on and look at the admin on the app, but yeah, it's retained. It's added to WCCIS as an attachment at the moment, so that's how we'll be recording it in the patient notes.
So the last part I didn't understand. I asked about the patient record. It concerns me when we collect data which is held in a disparate way and is not integrated into the patient record. And will you be integrating it into the patient record, or
Yes,
a summary of it?
Yeah, so the summary will be stored on the data system that we currently use in the health board as an attachment. So currently we're using the WCCIS data system for our patient notes. So it'll be integrated in that way, recorded as an attachment. And then as per sort of information governance guidelines, the data will be only kept as long as required.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Tom. And we could spend the next 3 hours talking about sharing of data, and I'm particularly keen on doing that, but not today. So thank you for that, and thank you, Erin, for that presentation. It'd be interesting to see how that develops and goes on. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, they're going to test my skills this afternoon now, because we've got online pre-recorded, online not pre-recorded, etc., etc. So this is the next presentation we're moving on to now, which is pre-recorded. Penny Muir, Chris Holland, and Elizabeth Errington Evans talking about improving unpaid carers' involvement and experience of the frailty pathway. The technical team will now whiz us into that.
Thanks, darling. Well, this is Bud's project, Equip.
I'm afraid we're going to have to stop that because they're not hearing it online. So we're going to rewind and go back to see if we can get it to work online. Again, just to remind everybody online, if you could mute your microphones, that would be great. I think there is a mic open online as far as I'm aware. That would be good.
Yeah. I could put the link.
Again, I think we've had some technical difficulties online with that presentation. I think the sound has been missing from some of that presentation for those that are online. Unfortunately, I do apologise for that. Are there any questions in the room before I go online on that presentation? No? Okay. Anything online? Penny, did you want to come back on anything for that, or?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Penny.
So we're here if there's any questions, and obviously online we'll try and get the MP4 to you if the organisers can do that.
Yeah, that we'll make sure the link goes out for that. That's not a problem.
I mean, I have got the MP4 here, but I can't share it in the chat for those online.
We'll for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about all the problems, and obviously not our fault.
It's not your issue, Penny. It's more ours than yours.
It's a shame because the first one was okay, but our one wasn't.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to move us on then, if that's okay. Thank you, Penny and team. Thomas Wilson is going to come forward now in terms of approaches to screening for frailty and nutritional status in community dwelling older adults. So, Thomas, over to you. Thank you.
Good. So yeah, so thanks very much for the invite to talk today. So I'm going to speak about something ever so slightly different that hasn't been covered past few days here. So to give you a bit of background, I'm part of a research group at the Department of Life Sciences, Abbey Uni, and we're focused around diet and health. So particularly on how we can utilise dietary assessment for health-based assessment, but also how we can move that technology into the community and how we can move away from self-reported measures of dietary status. So my particular area of expertise is in looking at frailty and malnutrition. So how can we use that information for kind of surveillance-based measures and early intervention? And we were kind of a very small research group based in Aberystwyth, but we've got a lot of collaborators across the UK and internationally. And what we also are actively engaged with is a lot of work with the UK food and drink industry to then how can we use this information to look at food-first solutions to malnutrition prevention. So just in way a bit of an introduction. So prevalence of frailty and malnutrition is much higher than people realise. So around 10% of community dwelling adults over the age of 65 are at risk of malnutrition. But it's also often a modifiable risk factor. People don't have to become malnourished, and it's also something that can be actually prevented if it's detected early enough. But early intervention only works if we can detect it earlier. So it's all well and good saying early interventions can do this, but if we haven't got screening technology to detect it sooner, it's very difficult to intervene early on as well. But screening is expensive and time consuming. So screening methods have to be scalable, they have to be acceptable. They've got to be low cost, and they've got to do what we can do already, but better. So if we can't scale these up to populations and we're still doing the same thing, what we can always do, but more expensive and more time consuming, we haven't really made any progress. So that's where for the past almost 10 to 15 years in Aberystwyth, we've been working on dietary intake biomarkers. So biochemicals measured through people's urine that reflect the food we eat. And why are we doing this specifically? Well, the inaccuracy of self-reporting dietary intake is extremely difficult. So a statistic I was told by a dietitian in Hull was around 40% of the UK adult population are nutritionally illiterate. That doesn't mean you don't understand things, but most people doesn't understand what is a major source of protein, where does their fibre come from? And that is in an environment where food labelling is getting increasingly complex. I find some of these nutritional surveys very difficult, and I've been working on this for 10 years, trying to ask the average person to do this, elderly, vulnerable populations, people with cognitive impairment, people awaiting surgery, and children. It's a very challenging situation. And also face-to-face nutritional surveys are expensive. Anything that involves people having to go out speak to people, especially in rural communities, is time intensive and expensive, and that really often restricts what we can do. These screening measures only really work if we can do it at scale and very often. The minute we can only do something once every few years, we're not really screening there, we're just measuring things every now and then. So to try and convince you that this works, so we know that biomarkers can quantify the levels of different foods they're exposed to. So working with the Medical Research Council, we developed a whole suite of biochemicals that reflect all the different components that are commonly eaten in the UK diet. And we do this through a series of controlled dietary intervention studies, moving right through to epidemiological validation studies in both the UK and internationally. So you can see this is just a small example where different dietary components, and we can measure, people's exposure to these different dietary components, whether it's no exposure, low to medium or high. And we've done this for a whole range of foods that people in the UK typically eat. But also, quite important to this is collecting urine samples at home. So we found that the more you can do it at people's homes, the more people are willing to do this. So several years ago, we worked as part of an EU consortium to look at commercialising urine collection technology in the home. So this was pre-COVID, where sample collection at home and putting things through the post wasn't as a big thing. So we spent a lot of work with industrial partners and the Royal Mail to work out the ins and outs of how we can transport urine samples safely through the General Post Office. And what that enables us to do is now location is not a barrier to people being included into dietary intervention studies or nutritional monitoring. If you can send something out in the post and you can receive it back in the post, really a post box now is only the barrier for people being contacted for some of this technology. But obviously, in relation to frailty screening, which is what my interest is how this relates to some of those more functional capacity measures, which are extremely time consuming and extremely expensive to do. So as part of a small pilot study in Aberystwyth, led through some colleagues from the sports science department, we did quite an extensive phenotyping of older adults. So these took around 2 to 3 hours every time. And what we started to do is started to build models which linked chemicals in people's urine, which related to fruit and vegetable intake, to protein turnover, and to the utilization of some of these nutrients, into measures such as muscle mass, which was measured through DEXA scanning, through grip strength, through walking speed, through physical measures of functional capacity that are extremely time consuming and expensive to measure. So because we could start now linking these components of people's diet to their functional output, we could start now moving away from having to measure their functional output, and we can focus on the dietary side. And even more so, a big part of my work is on protein intake. So obviously what we're interested in is that early warning detection. So obviously from the chair stand test is a great test for frailty, but again, it's difficult to do in people's home on their own, and people need to travel to a clinical centre or a hospital or a community centre to do this in person. But we know through measuring chemicals in people's urine, we can detect that transition from effectively robust into the pre-frail stage due to that decline in strength, because we can see the protein intake slowing and the protein utilization slowing in the human body. So that's been really quite a success of this work to try and translate this into the frailty phenotyping. And then it's just two brief examples before I run out of time of how we actually do. Is this feasible? A lot of people say people won't do this, it's too difficult, people don't want to engage. Well, the Screening Treats Malnutrition Programme is a study that's been running since 2020, but we had a few years of feasibility and some pandemic related delays in the middle. So we've recruited over 1,000 through the Clinical Trial Centre at the University of Southampton. And these are people who are most at risk of undernutrition. So these are typically people who have maybe a medical risk factor, but also looking at the social risk factors of malnutrition, recent bereavement, living alone, all these kind of things which build up that risk register to being malnourished. And this has been recruited out of 178 to date primary care sites across the UK. And the study is delivered, apart from some in-person intervention for behaviour change with nurses, the entire identification, the recruitment and the screening is all delivered remotely. There's no contact with participants and research staff or clinicians. It's recruited, it's administered, it's all done remotely, and that has really been the success for allowing the uptake of participants. So this is something that's going to come, it's going to run until 2025, and this will look at the efficacy of malnutrition screening in primary care in the UK. But also something which is of bigger interest to me is looking at how we integrate this with clinical care. So we were lucky to work with the colorectal cancer team at Blongleis Hospital and across the UK to look at nutritional status prior to surgery and their post-operative outcomes. We know if people enter hospital malnourished, they're more than likely going to leave malnourished or stay in hospital for a lot longer. So we found that 10% of patients attending surgery for colorectal cancer were already malnourished, and a further 38% were at risk. People who were at risk of malnutrition stayed in hospital for longer. So in-person screening for some of these measures is around 20 minutes each time. Now, that is not a massive burden, considering these people will be having preoperative assessments and coming into hospital anyway, but it's 20 minutes we don't need to do without patients already going through a complex care pathway and a lot of other things to deal with. But also, more importantly, we lost 30% of our participants during the follow-up stages because they were too ill to reattend screening. But we could still get the dietary assessment technology out to them. And this is the big thing, is if we consistently require people to travel to take part in things and do screening measures, it's never really going to work. The more things we can move out into the community and to people's homes, the more access we're going to provide for these measures. So just kind of to quickly wrap up. So I think we've shown over the past several years that collecting biofluids in the community is doable, it works, and people will engage. And we know dietary status is a key determinant of decline, especially in at-risk populations. Remote screening could be a very effective way for managing, especially rising planned care wait times, if we could look to stratify those wait lists based on risk. And remote assessment of dietary intake is scalable, it's easily deliverable, and it's low cost, especially when you factor in rural communities. So hopefully some time for some questions, but thank you very much. Oh, just some acknowledgements. We're quite a small team, but obviously mainly for Jonathan and Nia down in Cardiff, who are a big part of this work, and all the people who fund us to do this work as well. Thanks very much.
Thanks, thanks for that, Thomas. Is there any questions in the room before I go online? Yep, there's one there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Selma and Ms. Bowman student, Mr. Southwest. I wanted to ask if there was any issue, like with presence of protein in the transportation of the samples. I love the fact that the screening is made available to them and to the so that it will be easy. But I want to know practically if there was any challenge or if there was any effect on maybe proteinuria increasing as a result of transport time in the urine samples. And then secondly, I want to ask those after the analysis has been done and it's been discovered that this person is actually deficient in this or there's an increase in this, how was the intervention tailored to help them in their homes, or do they need to still come back to a healthcare facility outside their homes?
Okay, so to answer the first question, so it is a problem, but what we did as part of development work for this, we screened hundreds and hundreds of different chemicals. So we've all these kind of things we talked about, the logistics of storage, we've tested this robustly, and we've only selected chemicals which we know aren't affected by these kind of processes. So we kind of have like almost a filtering system. We may start off with 20 biomarkers for a single item, but end up only one, because like you said, one of them may not be very sensitive, one of them may not be robust to storage temperatures. So all these different factors we kind of work through, and we test in the lab, and we do small real world experiments to test that. The second question was about access. So my work is I'm much more of an observationalist. So it's for the intervention development people to kind of look at this. But what we are doing a lot of work on is looking at food fortification. So what foods can people get access, whether community pharmacies play a role in social prescribing. But I think from an intervention perspective, I think anything that is food-based, then we don't need to come to clinical trial centres. We're not looking at supplements and pharmaceutical intervention. We are looking at food-based interventions for some of this stuff, yeah.
Thank you for that. We have a question online that talks about could this be of benefit in social care, and I'm assuming it could be in terms of the intervention arrangement and the hands-on arrangement, and also obviously from a point of view of people staying longer in hospital and decommissioning and all the stuff that goes with that. So I would imagine that there would be a real good need for it in social care. Thomas has done the bit that says there is an issue. What we have to do is try and take that learning and do something with it, is the next bit, really. So thank you very much indeed, Thomas. Thanks for that. Okay, and we're going to move to Rhian Lloyd now, who is going to do a presentation in Welsh. She's online, I think, today. I think people who come online will have already made their connection with the translation system. Within the room, we have translation live. We will be using headsets for that. So, Rhian, if you're ready, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Hello, pnawn da. Dach chi'n clywed i? Can you all hear me? Good afternoon. Oh, thank you. I'll share my screen. Can you just put your thumbs up if you can see the screen? Dach chi'n gweld y sgrin rwan? Ani. Felly, gai yn gyntaf diolch o galon I chi.
We're not seeing the screen at the moment, sorry.
Right. Are you can you see the screen? I'm sharing my screen, but it's not showing for you, no? We can see you. Oh, right, okay. You can't see the PowerPoint.
I can play it if you want.
Should we play the slides from our end? Is that more useful for you? Is that?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Are you sharing the screen now? Yes? The slideshow? Hello? Hiya, I can't hear you, sorry. Are you sharing the screen? Yes? Yes, okay. Fedra I gychwyn wan, ia? Iawn, felly diolch yn fawr iawn I chi am y gwahoddiad pnawn 'ma, a mae'n fraint gyda fi gael cyflwyno fy ymchwil I chi, sef edrych ar gofalwyr di-dal a datblygu gwybodaeth a dealltwriaeth am unigolion sy'n rhoi gofal. Ac mae'r gynhadledd yma heddiw yn edrych ar newid yn dydy, cofleidio newid. A dyna swn i'n licio I ni edrych ar fyr pnawn 'ma. Sef edrych ar sut fedra ni wella a datblygu a cefnogi anghenion unigolion sy'n rhoi gofal. A cwestiwn ar yr ail sleid ydy edrych ar cwestiwn I gnoi cil os liciwch chi. Pam bod hi'n bwysig bod ni'n edrych ar unigolion sy'n rhoi gofal? Wel, yn ystod Covid, y pandemig Covid-19, wnaethon ni ffeindio na dyma oedd congol faen cymdeithas ni. Yr unigolion yma oedd yr rhwyd diogelwch. Ac pam felly bod, ella bod ni'n rhaid yr cydnabyddiaeth i'r unigolion yma? Wel, weithiau tydi'r unigolion yma ddim yn gweld eu hunan fel y label, os liciwch chi. Y label o ofalwr. Achos weithiau mae'r label yna'n un diarth ac yn un sydd yn teimlo'n gyffyrddus iddyn nhw I dderbyn. Ond wrth dderbyn y label gofalwr, maen nhw'n cael pasbort Mae o fel goriad, fel allwedd i agor drysau i unigolion sy'n rhoi gofal, achos wedyn maen nhw'n medru cael budaliadau, maen nhw'n medru cael cynllun, cymorth a cefnogaeth. Felly dyma pam nes i benderfynu pa mor bwysig oedd gwneud yr ymchwil yma. Felly yn sleid 3, da ni'n gweld y rhesymeg pam mae Llywodraeth Cymru mae Llywodraeth Cymru wedi creu strategaeth ar gyfer gofalwyr di-dal, sef y pwysigrwydd adnabod yn gynnar gofalwyr di-dal, pwysigrwydd bod yr unigolion yn hunan adnabod, pwysigrwydd wedyn yn sleid 4 bod unigolion a bod ni fel proffesiwn, gweithwyr proffesiynol, gwirfoddol a preifat, pawb yn ceisio deall profiadau unigolion sy'n rhoi gofal a mwy o hyfforddiant. Felly dyna di ymchwil i trio gweld a cael cip olwg os liciwch chi ar bywyd unigolion. Felly sleid 5 amcanion fy ymchwil i wedyn oedd edrych ar trio deall ystyr gofal ac wedyn edrych ar hunaniaeth unigolion. Wedyn, yn sleid 6, da ni'n gweld pwysigrwydd be oedd canfyddiad yr ymchwil i mi. Peth cyntaf oedd, ydy unigolion yn mabwysiadu yr hunaniaeth o ofalwyr? A pam, dyna'r cwestiwn eisiau mynd reis ar dechrau de, pam bod nhw ddim yn gweld eu hunan fel gofalwyr? Yn fy ymchwil i, dyma edodd un gofalwr. Y gŵr ydi o de, da ni di prodi do, in sickness ac in health. Felly toedd hi'n yn gweld ei hun yn ofalwr. Un arall, yng nghyfweliad 2. Wel, dwi'n yn cyfri fy hun fel gofalwr, achos da ni'n edrych ar ei ôl, mewn ffordd. Ac wedyn, dyma ni ofalwr sydd yn wraig yn edrych ar ôl i gŵr ers blynyddoedd. But you're part of me, aren't you? Meddai wrtho fo. So ddim yn gweld ei hun fel gofalwr, fel rhywbeth pell diarth, gŵr i phartnar oes i oedd o. Ac wedyn, yn yr ymchwil hefyd, nes i ymchwilio i weld y rhesyma dros ofalu. Un o'r rhesyma oedd y cyfrifoldab. A dyma be oedden nhw'n dweud, ti byth yn fodlon, sti, tan dwi'n weld o'n saff ar y soffa na. Gan ofn, cael yr ofn oedd hi, o bod o'n mynd i syrthio. Peth arall oedd dyletswydd. Y dyletswydd o ddeud, wel, swn i'n licio sa neb arall yn neud o. Mam, dio. Un arall. Mae teulu'n bwysig, tydi? Mae o di edrych ar ôl ni. Twr ni dio wan, de. Ac dyma gofalwr arall yn deud, dwi'n meddwl bod mam yn disgwyl i mi neud o. Sort of thing. Peth arall oedd euogrwydd, achos dyma nhw'n deud, gen i lot o emosiynau. Mae o'n tynnu chdi, mae'n rhwygo chdi fel person, ti'n teimlo'n euog bod efo'r gŵr, a wedyn ti'n teimlo'n euog bod chdi'n efo dad. Ac wedyn, dyma un yn deud, wel, mae'n ngonscience i'n glir. Eto, o'na newid yn y berthynas, yr ystyr o gwrthdaro, mam yn gwrthod sws, a pa mor frwnt a brifodd hynna. Yr ymddiried, y berthynas, oedd o'n hollol, oedden nhw'n ymddiried ynddo fo. Ac wedyn, yr ystyr arall oedd bod patrwm bywyd unigolion wedi cael ei droi ben ychan isa. Ac yna'r effaith mawr ar lesiant unigolion. Unigolion yn cael ei effeithio llesiant corfforol, iechyd emosiynol a meddyliol. Dim amser pryma i edrych ar rhain i gyd, ond os oes unrhyw un yna chi eisiau mwy o wybodaeth am y canfyddiadau, plis cysylltwch efo fi. Felly o'na effeithiau anferthol am yma. Ac o'r canfyddiadau'r ymchwil. Dyma nes i greu o'r ymchwil, sef model hunaniaeth gofalwr. Ac o'r model yma, be wnaethon ni ffeindio oedd bod yna wahanol ofalwyr. Felly, dyma ni'r gofalwr. Y gofalwr annibynnol, sef, yndi, mae'n picio i weld mam bob hyn a hyn, ond mae'n byw bywyd yn annibynnol. Mae gynnon ni'r gofalwr sy'n galw heibio, dropio mewn bob hyn a hyn. Wedyn, y gofalwr cyson, maen nhw yna. 24.
You've got interest.
Rhian, you've gone on mute for some reason. If you could unmute your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, mae'n ddrwg gen i am hwnna. Gofalwr annibynnol, ia, y gofalwr sydd yn hollol annibynnol. Mae'n picio i weld y teulu neu'r gofalwr pan yn achlysurol iawn. Gynnwch chi'r gofalwr galw heibio, picio ar y ffordd i'r siop ella, ond ddim yn mynd yna yn aml iawn, rhyw bicio unwaith yr wsos. Gynnwch chi'r gofalwr cyson, sef gofalwr sydd bob un diwrnod 24 awr efo'r unigolyn. Ac wedyn mae gynnwch chi'r gofalwr sydd wedi drochi, sydd yna, mae o'n sioc, mae yna salwch wedi digwydd dros nos, argyfwng, neu ella damwain, ac maen nhw yn y sefyllfa yma heb unrhyw rybydd, a dyn nhw'n gwybod be i wneud, pa gymorth i gael. Gynnwch chi'r gofalwr difreinio wedyn, be di'r rhain ydy'r unigolyn ella sydd wedi gorfod mynd i'r gofalu'r amdano, wedi gorfod mynd i'r sbyty, neu mewn gofal preswyl, neu wedi marw. Ac o'r canlyniad mae'r gofalwr wedi colli rôl. Ond maen nhw dal yn teimlo, be dwi'n ei rwan? Be di'r sefyllfa? Maen nhw angen cefnogaeth ac arweiniad. Ac hefyd mae gynnon ni'r gofalwyr coll. Di hein yn derbyn dim help o gwbl. Dydyn nhw'n teimlo, dydyn nhw'n derbyn y label, maen nhw'n gydd neu ella gwrthod y label. Felly mae hon fel cylch, da chi'n gweld ti fel cylch, mae pobl medru symud rownd y cylch yma fel mae profiadau'r unigolyn sydd angen gofal i angen. Ac yn ystod yr amser yma, be fyswn ni'n hoffi i gynnig fysa model hunaniaeth gofalwyr lle da ni'n asesu gwir sefyllfa'r unigolion yma yn ystod eu patrwm bywyd. Fyma, mae'r model yn asesu risg a creu cynllun, cynnal cefnogaeth a gofal pwrpasol wedi dylwra i'r gofalwr. Gynnwch chi'r asesu risg gwyrdd, sef fyma gweithredu gofal ataliol, sef asesu anghenion, sgilia a creu cynllun diogel a diogelu i'r unigolyn sy'n rhoi gofal. Mae gynnwch chi y cynllun asesu adfer a cynnal sydd yn edrych ar sut i gynnal yr unigolyn sy'n rhoi gofal. Ella neu cynllun sydd yn teleofal, digigofal ac yn helpu'r unigolyn sy'n rhoi gofal dydd i ddydd. Hein i ofalwyr cyson, i ofalwyr sydd wedi cael eu trochi, neu y gofalwyr allan yna sy'n ofalwyr achlysurol. Ac wedyn mae gynnwch chi yr cynllun asesu risg, sef y cynllun dwys, sef fyma lle da ni yn cynnig ymateb mewn argyfwng. Hein i'r unigolion sydd wedi cael eu trochi i fod yn ofalwr dros nos, neu efallai yn ofalwr cyson heb neb i droi. Felly mae angen cynllun sydd yn cynllun diogelu llesiant y gofalwr ac edrych ar yr sbardina. Plis cysylltwch gyda fi os ydych chi eisiau unrhyw wybodaeth. Mae'n ddrwg gen i heddiw bod hwn yn mond yn flas i chi o'r model hunaniaeth gofalwr. Ond diolch o galon i chi am wrando pnawn 'ma. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
I'm afraid we haven't got time for questions because we're now going into breakout sessions. So I do apologise for that, everybody. So thank you, Rhian, for that presentation. Apologies again to some people online. There was an issue with regard to the Welsh translation, I believe, as we were going through that presentation. So apologies for that. The layers of complexity in my life are gathering by the minute. So apologies for that. In terms of the breakout sessions, obviously, same process as this morning. We're going out for 3 sessions now, half an hour each. The issue is that in the international first floor, using immersive simulations to develop joined up approaches to care across multidisciplinary, multi-site teams, that is cancelled due to ill health, I'm afraid, so won't be available. So people will have to make a choice of the other available options, either on the ground floor or in here for that first breakout session. So there are 3 breakout sessions now, and we're back in here for 3:30. Thank you all very much. If we could move as fast as possible, that would be really good. And if the technical team could breathe for a minute, and then we'll work from there in here. Thank you. If in doubt, do it yourself. So, okay, thank you, everybody. If we could just take seats and move wherever we're moving to very quickly, that would be really useful. So in this room now, we have Jo back again. She loved it so much the first time. She's come back for a second go, which is good. And Stefan, who is going to ably support her in this anchoring community-led solutions to social care issues in social enterprises across rural Wales, a really important discussion. So I'm going to hand over to these guys now, who's going to take you through that presentation. Thank you.
And so if I press that, okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Stefan Elms. I am the Social Enterprise Development Officer for PAVS, which is the Pembrokeshire Association for Voluntary Services, the CVC in Pembrokeshire. So I help the social enterprises in the county, and I'm working with Jo on a few projects to involve social enterprises in community-led multi-agency systems to help the care sector in the communities. So I'm going to hand over to Jo to give a bit of a setting the scene on what our presentation is about.
Hello, welcome everybody. Leading on from the presentation I made this morning about exploring community-led solutions, I wanted to explain how I came to explore social enterprises and particularly community benefit societies as a way to flex the system around social care. So as part of the project that we're looking at reducing isolation and loneliness, perhaps improving access to information and advice, and securing rights and entitlements for unpaid carers. And through that work and the specific focus of the barriers and how we might overcome them, we looked at perhaps the assets of the community being used to deliver support, and doing this through a community benefit society. So issues around the workforce, we identified that the workforce are moving between direct payments, personal assistance, possibly working within the local authority, and possibly working within the health sector and across home care sectors. And with the arrival of micros, the people were moving across from one sector to another. So why not create a community benefit society to enable not only the staff to flex across the different areas, but the back office rules and the back office roles and the recruitment elements, training and development. And why could we not support training locally, working locally and living locally through this approach? The second issue that we approached was about the rural isolation. So this is a barrier due to support not being provided through the Welsh language, and people were saying that they particularly wanted that kind of support, and also the issues relating to community transport in those rural areas and sometimes being cut to connect people to their hospital appointments and to for carers, paid care staff to get out to those very rural communities too. I spoke to a nurse recently who said that she travels an hour to work every day, has to pay for her own car parking, but she would earn as much money by working within 3 miles of her own home without those additional expenses and earning the same money as a micro enterprise. So that just gives you a sort of reflection on some of the comments that we hear. And then thirdly, it was about joining up the dots and that need for coordination. So this is where we began discussions with Stefan to look at how local businesses, social enterprises and individuals who want to use their skills and knowledge to create that kind of support could work together. So I'll hand back over to Stefan.
Thank you, Jo. So yeah, the reason that I'm part of this project is because social enterprise is a key thing in section 16 in the Welsh Government, and using that in the care sector. So I'm going to start talking a bit about social enterprise here. So with a raise of hands, who could be able to knows what a social enterprise is and can identify it? Not many hands. Okay, cool. So a lot of my job at the moment is to show people what a social enterprise is. And so a social enterprise, the slides are coming up soon, but a social enterprise is any organisation that has a source of revenue and has social aims and uses their profits to invest back into what they're doing. So there's the term not for profit, but I don't usually use that much because we want to encourage people to be able to use profit to reinvest back into the activities that they're doing. So yes, yeah, it's coming in a minute, great. So then we've got different types of social enterprises, the legal structures. So the term social enterprise is just a term, it's not the actual legal structure. The legal structures that a social enterprise could be a community benefit society, which is what we're talking about. It could be a community interest company. It could be a charitable incorporated organisation, which is the new term for charities, where you can have a revenue and have a social impact. And there's quite a few other legal structures that it could be, but we're talking about community benefit societies today. And so if I skip through, there you go. Yeah, so that was just the term that is what the government call a social enterprise. And these were the legal structures that I was referring to. So that brings me on to where I've come from and why I know about social enterprise. So 10 years ago, I went to Glastonbury Festival and I was working there and I found all these wellies behind. So I brought them home to Wales, in Tegrin in Wales, to my parents' place, to their dismay, and then started recycling them into different products and things. I was then pairing them up and sending them the good wellies over to Romania, so people living on landfills who needed good wellies. The money that I was the revenue I was creating from the products was then also going to social enterprises in Kenya that we started, which was a simple chicken farm on top of a building that the revenue from that paid for the sanitary pads for the girls in the local school every month. So it was just a small amount of money, but led to a lot of social value, which we'll be talking about in a bit. So over the 10 years, I was doing all of that with the wellies, which led then to my next enterprises, which was a social enterprise restaurant in Carmarthen, wellbeing nurture centre in Carmarthen, and then now community farm, which we've just acquired 125 acre farm in Llansteffan, which is really exciting, and the social value that we can create from that is incredible. Now, the reason I'm telling you about this is because that Welly project only took around £3,000 of a small grant from Unlimited to set the scene and set the ball rolling with the help of volunteers in the community to then lead to all of these projects, which then leads me to PAVS. So PAVS, I started working in PAVS in April as a social enterprise officer, and now my job is to help any social enterprises in the Pembrokeshire area who work in the care sector. So my job is to help them with their policies, their governance, employment funding, which is how me and Jo started working together because she also works for PAVS. So in Pembrokeshire, there are currently no social enterprises operating as a residential care home, and that's what we're going to try and work out if that's we can increase more residential care homes that are social enterprises. And section 16 mentions that we need to create more not-for-profit organisations in the care sector. So I'm going to start now talking about Clinview Care Farm, which is in Pembrokeshire, a great organisation. They started off as a private company with some accommodation, and now they turned into a CIC, a community interest company. They're on a 395 acre farm. They work with people with learning disabilities, and now they are a residential care home for people with learning disabilities. And the exciting thing is that now they are turning into a community benefit society. So they're so well renowned that even the Senate calls them a centre of good practice. So they're a really good example of how a social enterprise can take over some of the care sector and create a residential care home. So yeah, it's just saying that it's becoming a community benefit society, and it's a really exciting product to keep your eyes out for. So that leads me back onto Jo and how my project Catalyst for Care and Preseli Cares are working together.
Thank you. So the barrier that we face is that the integration of health and social care isn't happening because of some of the systemic barriers that we've talked about in depth today. But what we need to do is create these innovative ideas through community benefit societies and social enterprise. But we need to be able to prove what's the benefit in a social enterprise and what impact will it have. So we've got quite a few holistic therapists in Hermon and Crimic, and they've talked to me about, well, if I can prove that by supporting people to do meditation in the woods prevents them to go into the GP practice 3 times because of their mental health conditions, how can this prove that we're reducing the impact upon the health services? So that led to a conversation looking at how you prove the social value. And if we established a community benefit society to bring all these services together, how could we redirect the funding to support that community benefit society?
Jo? So with all social enterprises, it's really important to record your social value. So social value is similar to a financial value, but the social value in the community. So with any enterprise, you're always going to record your financial value, and then social enterprise, you're going to record your social value. Now, there's a few ways you can do this. It's called social return on investment, and you can either use an engine online, or you can also get feedback from the community, do market research within the community. But I'm going to talk about the social value engine. Now, it might sound a bit boring, but I'm going to make it snazzy as possible. So social value engine is this program online, which the local authority in Pembrokeshire paid for me to have a license for. And it's where you put in your activities of an organization, and it has all the data for that activity that shows what social value that's going to create. So it has a list of like 300 different proxies, they call it. And then, for example, this is an organization, and all of those lines there is an activity that they do. And then at the end, it creates a financial social value return. And then in the end, this report creates this figure here, which is every pound invested in this organization, £6.63 is created in social value. Now, this is just an example of how an organisation could record their social value so that they could go to the local authority, the health board, and say, this is what we're doing, and this is what it creates in social value. And from all the presentations today, I've heard a lot about what the social value has created from helping people with in the care sector. So, for instance, social value in a care service, obviously there's a social value for the service user to get the care that they need. Then there's a social value in the family of the service user. If there's a social enterprise that's doing ethical employment, that's going to have a huge social value. We've got any volunteers or community engagement, that creates a social value. And then if it's in the local area, then it's going to have a circular economy model, bring money back into the area. So there's so many different levels to an organisation and what social value they create. So what's next is now we are working with the Regional Partnership Board to do a feasibility study on a social enterprise that could take over residential children's care homes in Pembrokeshire. So that's going to be released in March 24. So if you've got any questions about that, then send them our way and we'll let you know the updates on that. And if you've got any similar projects that's going on in your areas, we would love to know, because it's really good for different areas, different counties to talk to each other to see what's going on so that we can help each other out and we can learn from our mistakes or share ideas. Yes, I think that's it for us, isn't it? Great. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And open to any questions now. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that whistle-stop tour through what's going on and where that fits in. Some fascinating insights there in terms of people making it happen and not waiting. There's a real note there for me around not being done to, but doing it yourself and getting on with it and starting to work with people and getting support from other people. So that's really good. Questions from the floor, if there are any? No? Anything online before I? No? Okay. So thank you both very much for that. Thank you, everybody. Oh, you take that. You take that. So we've got potentially now 10 minutes for people to have a quick break, comfort break, if that's okay. My conscience on my left-hand side says we can do that. So that's what we'll do. So if everybody wants a 10-minute break, and then we'll do a bit of twiddling on the technical side as well whilst we're doing that. And then we're going to then kick off with Jill. And Jill's got a film for us to put ready for, I think, as well. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, could we just take our seats again? And we have just requested a blast from the heating system, so we might get a little bit of noise in the background. The hamster is now running on the wheel faster to get it to work, so that's good. Okay, if that's okay, we'll just kick off, because there's still a long way to go on the journey. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Jill. I think you're going to introduce the video, and then Jill Byrne, Executive Officer of RHCW, connecting people in a rural community. Apologies for the heating, but it will warm us up slightly because it is getting a bit cooler. So I'm going to hand over to Jill, and I think then there's a video to go alongside that. So Jill, over to you.
Hello, we're going to show a film that we had made as part of an external evaluation of the work that we do in such a rural county as Ceredigion, which normally scores down at the bottom of access to services in the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation. There's very little there for residents of Ceredigion. So our role is in providing an environment that brings people together, and through that we build really important capacity within individuals and connect them together. And we do focus on health needs, and it's not that if we weren't there, there's alternatives. If we weren't there, there's basically nothing else there. So I hope the film shows that what we do, how we do it, and some of the benefits of us being there. We're funded by a real patchwork of grants, which is a real challenge to keep everything going. But the benefits of what we do are really, really important. So hopefully the film will show that. And then if there's any questions, people can come back with them at the end. Thanks. Okay, we'll try it again. Let's try it again. Okay, can you put those stuff of records? Sorry, just fine.
Two things. One is we're dropping the heating out, and two is we will try and get the sound is as loud as we can get it at the moment in terms of volume settings. So we're going to try and relaunch the video and see if that makes any difference.
We're going to try again.
Really? I could sing, but that'll spoil the events later on.
Ray Ceredigion Again is a registered charity. It was established in 2001, originally as a network for out-of-school childcare clubs. Over the years, we've responded to community need. So we've done lots of consultations as part of our funding. And out of those consultations, people in the local community have identified a range of needs, which we've then worked with other partners such as education, health. We've then organised activities to meet those needs. Over the years, it seemed that there were 4 particularly vulnerable groups out in the community, which were parents of young children who, in a very rural county, were at risk of becoming isolated, children and young people, particularly those who are most vulnerable, who are in foster care, young carers, or were experiencing some sort of issues at school. Young adults with disabilities who, once their full-time education comes to an end, there's a big gap in what's available for them, and they were becoming very isolated. That could affect their mental health, their physical health. We also became aware that older people were a vulnerable group as well. So we established a craft and chat group, which is still going. That was established 5 or 6 years ago, which is mainly older people coming. And then we also have our group that meets once a week for people with dementia and their carers.
All right, count them in.
So a lot of the work that we do is preventative.
Clever boy.
By putting on the activities that we deliver, we are preventing people from needing more costly and statutory services. So there's a benefit to the community and other local services of what we do, not just to the individuals that we support.
Right, everyone, are we all ready to rock and roll?
I'm Nikki. I am a youth leader and a play worker. I run the reactives groups, both the junior and the senior groups.
How many marshmallows did you have, please?
The older age group is 11 to 19-year-olds, and that's where I'm a youth leader.
All right, count them in.
So my job is to empower them and engage them, to keep them out of trouble, to offer some advice and some wisdom when they come to me with their problems. And my main aim is to form friendships for them within the group and building their confidence and allowing them to express themselves in a way that they're not normally allowed to express themselves. They also earn points. The qualifications they get, they're building their points, which will enable them to go into college and, if they wish to be able to go on to university. And it also helps for the ones that are really disengaged with education. It also gives them things to put onto their CVs, qualifications that they can have on their CVs. The challenges that I face is getting through to them. A lot of the young people, when they first come, their barriers are up, and it's breaking down the barriers. Building trust can take years. The younger we get them, the easier it'll be when they feed through to the older group. We've already built up that trust, and it'll be easier for them to engage with us when they come up into the older group. My experience with children and young people, when they go to high school are trying to fit all of these round pegs in square holes. Our job is to get rid of the square pegs and to get rid of the round holes. Our job is to let children be children, let young people be young people, and allow them to use their voices and learn in a way that suits them.
For over 10 years now, Ray has organised the Ray Play Day on UK National Play Day, which is normally the first Wednesday in August. And Aberystwyth is pretty much middle of the county. It's got really good public access links. The day is completely free, which is really important. The Community Health Association, housing associations, youth services, the Scouts came this year, BBC came this year, speech and language therapists, family centres, fire service come, police come down, everybody comes. We get about 2,000 people every year to gates on the park. The minute we put it up on Facebook, we've got about 50 people responding to it within about 5 minutes of us posting it. Every organisation can promote what they do to families. It's the best opportunity they have all year to engage with the public. They tend to stay for the whole day. Yeah, we're really proud of it, how valued it is and what a central event it is for the county every year. Any child from any background can do anything on that field that any other child can do. The minute you introduce something you've got to pay for, you've got children looking at that and thinking, I can't have that. And that's really important about the day, I think. Over the years, we've realised that one of the things we lack in our premises is access to green spaces. So we spent 2 or 3 years asking local landowners and national trusts if we could have a small space there just to set up a seating area. We weren't successful. So in the end, we were lucky to receive Heritage Lottery Places for Nature funding, and we actually turned our tarmac car park into a wildlife garden area. So we've got all the planting, we've got the seating, we've got a table on casters we can move out of the way and have barbecues and fire pits there. We've got a greenhouse, so our Dummoney group have managed to turn that into a social enterprise where they're sowing plants, growing plants, selling plants. So we've managed to turn a really unprepossessing tarmac car park into a beautiful wildlife garden with the help of the Heritage Lottery Fund. As part of the Heritage Lottery Fund Places for Nature, we launched the wildlife garden at the end of May in 2022. So we had a wonderful day. It was sunny, it was lovely weather, about 100 people came and joined us. Our Ray Active Youth Club members were able to play some live music. We provided food, and the local mayor opened the garden for us.
Great to be here today and to be officially opening the wildlife garden. Hope everyone has a nice day.
Volunteers are at the heart of what we do a lot of the time. Particularly in the Forget-Me-Not dementia support group. There's an excellent team of volunteers who come every week. We could not run that group without them. They're there to talk to the carers, to make cups of tea, to sit with the person with dementia while the carer gets a break, which often is the only break they get all week, is the 3 hours they come here. really dedicated volunteers.
Lovely. That's great. Hi, action. Ready, action. And go. My name's Toby. Action. Brilliant.
Socialisation, fun, building friendships, having a reason to get up in the morning.
Why do you like coming to Domini? It's more fun, yeah? Yeah, activities.
What activities have you enjoyed the most?
The group meets twice a week. They've now set up a little mini social enterprise, growing and selling plants. This year they've been able to use those funds to pay for themselves to go to the pantomime, which they're really proud of.
Hey, I'm Helen, and I support Aubrey. He comes twice a week, and he absolutely loves it.
I enjoy colouring in with felt pens and stuff, and I enjoy the arty side of it. And it's just really changed lives, having that to look forward to and to continue to build confidence, develop new interests and skills, and the group's really successful.
Yeah.
What was the best answer?
Yeah, it was, all right. And what about line dancing?
It's kind of amazing. It would be a great loss if they weren't able to come, because I know each and every one of them enjoy it.
Stay at home or come to Domini?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see you lot.
Come see us lot. Yeah.
I have baking cakes.
You like baking cakes? What's your favourite one?
Chocolate cake.
Of course they do, yeah.
My favourite food. Did it have lots of sugar on top as well?
Good, fantastic.
I made lots of friends very excited when Domini first started.
Is it one of your favourite things of the week?
Yeah. If I wouldn't go to Domini, then I think I'd be bored and depressed.
Hi, my name's Kitty. I've got 2 little girls.
I'm Sue and I'm Nana to Leo.
I'm Suzette and I'm Evan's grandmother.
I'm Reese.
I'm Charlotte.
Gabriel.
Almost to the top.
I find it fantastic because it gives Leo an opportunity to play with other children.
Whee! Good boy.
I sometimes bring him if his mum and dad are not able to bring him. His mum's working today, so his dad's working at home.
I don't have many friends with children, so it's nice for them to be in like a really child-orientated environment.
I enjoy coming because I enjoy talking to the others. They're all younger than me, but it's just nice to be able to talk to them.
Where we moved to, we don't know anyone, so it's fantastic to be able to come here and have Gabriel have some kind of socialisation as he grows up.
The RHCW is an amazing place. The people that run it are so lovely and caring, and you feel like they really do care about you.
I was looking at Google reviews and Facebook reviews and things, and this place had like all 5 stars.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, really good. And then we came here for the first time and we were kind of like, wow, everyone's so nice.
It's just a pleasurable place to come. There's nothing where you think, some little corner isn't being looked after. The whole place is really well managed.
Yay!
Yeah, it would be sad if it did go. Yeah. Because I know so many other people come here as well.
I really feel when I come here that I'm actually joining up with family.
that a pedal go-kart? Yeah.
Yes, great fun. You want a demo?
People give their time to fix things, and members of the public bring in their broken household items to be fixed for free.
Oh, and it's two-seater.
We have mechanics and engineers and just generally people who like to fix things, and I think a lot of that art is being lost.
Yeah, somebody very small has been using this. One of the things we're looking at is having a resource online so that we can bring up YouTube videos to help us do the job. And maybe it'll stop the customer from being a customer. Maybe they'll say, well, I could have done that.
If you can educate people how to live the same or better for less, I'm sure they'd do it.
It's a very worthy venture and something I feel quite passionate about because of the climate sort of crisis that we're in now.
So is that something that got repaired?
No, it was just always in the way, so we moved.
Oh, right, okay.
Ceredigion is a community hub, and it's a centre for so many different people, and it's a very homely and family feel to it. My role is the volunteer coordinator. I've been in this role for nearly a year now. It's a role that hasn't existed previously. Before, people used to come and volunteer, and people have volunteered with us for 10 years or more, some of them. A lot of people who come to volunteer with us need a little bit of help to just become part of the process. And people come to volunteer for lots of different reasons. A lot of people are retired, a lot of people want to give something back to the community. The volunteering gives people a great sense of worth, it gives them something to look forward to, it gives them something to do. You can work with adults with disabilities, you can work with teenagers, you can work with younger children, you can work with the family centre, you can volunteer for the dementia group. Every aspect is kind of covered. There's the wildlife garden happening. So we've got something really for everybody. We need more hands on deck. The carers need a rest, and so our volunteers provide a chance for the carers to just step back. I think volunteering for Ray has done a lot of things for a lot of people. People have gone on to change careers, to get jobs. People who have started here volunteering are actually members of staff now. It gives people the opportunity for training, it gives people the opportunity to do lots of things. And I think my role isn't just about supporting that, it's about developing the links, it's about maintaining the standards. But now we need to make sure that processes are kept up, those supervisions are happening, that everything that goes along with why we got investors and volunteers is maintained, and I suppose that's my role.
And if we don't help them, we're going to lose them.
Can you see me?
No.
Ray Ceredigion is a small organisation making a big difference in the county of Ceredigion, where services of all sorts are lacking. The past 3 years' lottery funding has enabled us to start up new provision for primary age children who need extra support, making a big difference to them and their families.
They look forward to it every week. You know, they're happy for 2.5 hours.
Just grateful for Ray.
We've started the first family centre in the Mid-County region, which has benefited children, parents and carers.
It's like a little family.
Our activities for young people with disabilities are the only provision of its kind in the county, and builds a strong social network for people at huge risk of isolation. And our volunteer coordinator supports volunteers from teenagers to people in their 80s and 90s to give back to their community. Everything we do comes from grassroots consultations and reflects what people tell us they need.
We instill in them values that will take them forward into adulthood and give them a better chance.
Meeting these needs builds strength and capacity for often vulnerable and isolated individuals, strengthening resilience within the county. It's quite an achievement, everything that we do.
Thank you for that, Jill. Fascinating video and so many things going on and so many people involved, and again demonstrating that the third sector and the voluntary sector across Wales is playing a significant part in keeping people in the community and keeping people's well-being, and really, really important. So we've got time for some questions. Again, we've got a comment as such. Hello, Hazel. Lloyd Lebran online. Important asset for Aberystwyth and surrounding community. This is exactly the kind of community hub we need to be utilising and supporting to reach people and prevent ill health. Fabulous video. And I agree, excellent work. And it is about getting into that younger age group as well, which is really quite important. So any questions in the room? There is one. If we could get a microphone, in fact, to the back, that would be. No, you do need one. You do need one because I get told off because online won't hear you. If I do apologise, and it's good for people's well-being to move around.
Other organisations, and there are many, of course, across Wales supporting people with learning disabilities.
Which festival was that? Yeah, because our Demony group did go to a festival, but it was the Welsh Stock Festival, I think, that they went to. We don't have. Well, we work with Dash, which is another group in Ceredigion that supports young people with disabilities. And we also have Ray Social Club, which is another group. Apart from that, we work with the Coleg Ceredigion. So our Demony group is designed for young people who've come to the end of their education. So previously we had a really good relationship with Maggie Neville, who ran the vocational group in Coleg Ceredigion. She's since left, so that has broken down a little bit. But we get a lot of referrals from social workers. A lot of the young people that come are referred in through social workers, or it's word of mouth, and parents ring up to ask for a place for their young person. But we don't have any other groups in Ceredigion really that support young people with disabilities. So we don't network with anybody else in the county because there isn't really anybody else except Dash and us, and then the colleges. We work with the schools very closely. What were you thinking? Okay. Okay, thanks.
Great, thanks for that. There's an underlying agenda there, Jill, I think. So in terms of in terms of other questions, have we got anything online at all? No. Anything else in the room? I think the other thing that comes out of that discussion as well, it reminds us to go back to our presentation this morning that talks about relationships and personalities that play a big part in sustaining some of these community ventures and community enterprises, etc. Very often it's the people who are involved as well as the communities that are important in terms of that. So I think, again, we've got to kind of think about how we grow our own succession planning, how we grow people into roles that people are doing now to be able to keep things going for the future. Okay, so I'm going to move us on then. Thank you for that, Jill. Thanks ever so much. Again, just because we're agile at the front here, we've got a position where Jessie, I believe, is now online and doing an online presentation. And I must say, I'm pleased that she is online for us today. She's not well, but she has decided to do the presentation anyway. And that helps because that prevents me from singing to you for 30 minutes, which might be quite tricky. And other people might be doing that later. Okay, if we're technically ready to run.
Just check.
Jessie, are you sharing your own presentation? Is that okay?
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, hello. I'd be very happy to
you.
share my own presentation if that would work for yourselves. Can everybody see that? Somebody give me a clue. Are we good? I'll take that as a yes. So good afternoon, Pananda. Thank you very much for having me this afternoon, and sincere apologies not to be there in person today. I was really looking forward to it. Sue Denman and I were going to travel from Pembrokeshire, and we were really looking forward to it. So thank you. Today I'm going to be talking about evaluating the impact of community-centred approaches to health and wellbeing, and I think there's some very brilliant scheduling in this presentation coming directly after Ray Ceredigion, which is so inspiring. So, first slide. Where are we? The role of community in health and wellbeing. There is considerable evidence that connected and empowered communities are healthy communities. Communities that are involved in decision making about their area, that are well networked, have some assets, and where people look out for each other, all have a positive impact on people's health and well-being. We also know that the impact of loneliness and social isolation on the well-being of a person can be really significant, and there's a link between having strong connections and living a happy and healthy life. Greater social connectedness has been seen to be related to increased life expectancy, to protect against poor mental health, and the promotion of cognitive health. Across Wales, there are thousands of community-led initiatives, and the example we've just seen is one of them. Some are registered and formally constituted, others are less formal, but all contribute in some way to supporting the health and well-being of their populations. They include lunch clubs or swimming cold water clubs like the Blue Tits here. I'm not part of this group, I hasten to add. Some of you might be. The knit and natter groups, the men's sheds, and I'm sure you will know of many examples. So, what do community-centred models offer? Social connection and a sense of community, mutual trust and working together. Having a strong support system can help people with stress, isolation and difficult life events. Collaboration. Community initiatives often work with other organisations and across sectors, and collaboration is so crucial when you're thinking about resources, about sharing knowledge and experience. Community-led initiatives often understand local needs and can address it. They're tailored, they offer innovative solutions, they're rooted in their place and are adapted to context. Community-led solutions support a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership and confidence, sort of we can do it attitude. And I've heard so much of that today already. And finally, nature and the environment play a crucial role in addressing social issues, and community approaches often recognise this through wellbeing walks, community gardens, for example. There is an urgent need to address the climate and nature emergency, and I think community-led solutions can support sometimes more holistic ways of addressing both social issues and planetary issues. But evaluating the impact of community-centred approaches can be challenging for several reasons. Initiatives vary widely in their goals and objectives, making it difficult to develop standardised evaluation criteria. Many initiatives involve the hard to measure, more subjective outcomes, and these are challenging to quantify. For example, A person might be encouraged to attend a coffee morning having spent some time recovering from an illness. They might see someone they haven't seen for years. They might feel a bit better, more confident, be encouraged to do a little bit more, and then start being the person that brings others to that coffee morning. And so that positive domino of change keeps going. But how do you capture that? And I think feeding on from that point is about the longer term impact. So the full impact of community-led initiatives very often can take years to become evident, making short-term evaluation less informative sometimes. And finally, something that I'm sure some people will be familiar with is around limited resources. Community initiatives often operate with limited financial and human resources, making comprehensive evaluations quite challenging because they're so resource intensive. But despite these challenges, it's crucial that organisations have the space to be able to evaluate what they do, and for many different reasons, for the funder to improve, to adapt, to share their practice. So I'm going to talk briefly about some methodologies just to anchor the two case studies of evaluations that I'll discuss in a moment. On the quantitative side, there's surveys and questionnaires, data analysis, so analysing existing data sources such as government records, health statistics, to track trends and changes in some of the indicators relevant to that particular initiative. And then cost benefit analysis, the couple of presentations we're talking about social value, and I think being able to look at some of the economic impacts of the programme and its benefits that it generates. These could be things such as reduced healthcare expenses. I think it's an area where there's already some great work happening. On the qualitative side, there's interviews, so interviews with stakeholders, community leaders and participants. Focus groups, similarly, it's discussions with community members to explore perceptions, experiences and stories. Most significant change, which I'll talk a bit more about with the two evaluation case studies, it's a participatory and qualitative method that involves collecting stories of change from community members and others. And finally, participatory action research, which in many ways plays into these the other qualitative areas. So engaging community members in a research process, allowing people to really contribute to data collection, analysis, interpreting what's happening, and making the process as community driven and participatory as possible. I'll talk a bit more about MSc stories in a moment, but just want to pause on the idea of stories for a moment. And if I were there today, I was going to ask, why do stories matter? But I've got a few answers. So, you know, stories make sense of our lives, make meaning of the world, make connections with other people. They can influence and inspire. They can help develop skills in sort of empathy or develop connection. Stories are at the heart of the most significant change approach, which I'm going to talk more about now in relation to the two evaluations of community-centred approaches. So what is it? For those of you who are not familiar, most significant change, or MSC, is a participatory approach. It's an evaluation method that involves collecting stories of change from stakeholders and community members to look at the impact of a programme. It's a qualitative method, gathers narratives and stories that highlight the most significant changes brought about by the programme, the organisation, the initiative. It looks for impact. MSC can really help pin down and understand some of the unanticipated or transformative changes that might not be captured, like that domino effect with the coffee morning, through things that can't be quantified through traditional measures. MSc captures lived experience. It can sort of empower to be able to share your own experiences and perceptions, giving people a voice in the evaluation process. And finally, it can help inform decision making. So the stories can inform programme developments and capture the impact from the perspective of those people most directly affected. I'm going to talk about two examples now. The first case study is Circles of Support. Circles of Support, it's a preventative approach to well-being that supports individuals to build relationships and improve social connections. This project was delivered in early 2022 to pilot the approach. There were 2 introductory sessions held to raise awareness, followed by a course of 6 sessions online, exploring different elements. The second case study is the Wellbeing Newport Building Resilience project that was created and delivered by Newport and District Community Forum between May 2021 and March 2023, so a much longer project. And it set out to improve cohesion in Newport. Some of the activities included developing a wellbeing plan, employing an engagement and resilience officer, holding events to improve the sense of connection for its residents, reducing isolation, and also providing low-level support for those in the community who require or signpost it as needed. It's a model that I'm sure some of you will be familiar with. Before I go into some more detail, I'll talk about the similarities between them because there were some commonalities there. Firstly, both evaluations were funded through very specific funding mechanisms related to social wellbeing and community support. Both projects focused on community-centred approaches that emphasised prevention and wellbeing. Multi-sectoral partnerships were really important, both for the circles of support that was created from partnership across Pembrokeshire. I think some people are in the audience there today, and the Wellbeing Newport Building Resilience project brought together local organisations, groups and individuals. Community engagement was a key part in both. During the evaluation process, we used the MSc, we used mixed methods, and both aligned with the national and local policy frameworks that emphasise community-centred approaches to wellbeing. The circles of support, there were 9 stories collected. Of those 9, 3 attended the course to grow their own circle. 4 were in a professional role, 1 was a course trainer and 1 was a member of the steering group. So a really mixed cohort, and gathering stories from across the group gave that holistic view through the evaluation. Stories were collected and then analysed through 2 ways. So hierarchical group analysis, or a selection panel, which looked at 6 stories to choose the most significant, talk through them. It's a very emotive process, and then thematic analysis. 2 main themes came through from the data. So enablers and barriers to prevention. Circles of support is a preventative approach. So how can you get involved in that? What's the enablers? What supports it? And what are the barriers? And then the impact on well-being. There isn't time to show the detail here. We've released a report about this, so you can read it. But I've got 2 quotes to illustrate the spirit of the stories that came through. The first is from somebody there in a professional capacity. The course was a powerful tool for individual learning. So this is a deeper understanding of a person-centred approach. I've always done that, especially in youth work, but it's sharpened my practice. I listen better and harder. When we came to looking at wellbeing, there were some profound realisations for people. For example, a storyteller spoke about the effects of feeling a bit vulnerable going through the process. So on a personal level, it made me reflect on my own circle of support as the sessions coincided with a health scare for me. People that I thought would be there actually weren't. Some really were, but some were busy, very busy, looking the other way. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword for me. And I think this statement really highlights how a story, just one statement, can show the complexity of emotions and the context, and reveals much about both the impact of the course and the place where the person was coming from. The recommendations for circles of support were designed to inform future decision making in terms of commissioning, and the use of stories alongside the quantitative data provided real insight into the utility of the pilot and into subsequent learning. Coming back to Wellbeing Newport, the steering group used their learning from the MSc training that Together for Change, my organisation, delivered to gather stories from people who'd attended the activities. They were collected by those delivering because they were the most familiar with the attendees, and a total of 12 were collected in April 2023, mainly from volunteers and attendees at the events organised by the project. The age range was 70 to 98, so you can see the cohort of people that were attending the activities. And unfortunately, due to the limited time available to complete the evaluation, it wasn't possible to coordinate the MSc panel. But we did undertake a thematic analysis of the stories and triangulated across the data. And again, I can share that with those who might be interested. There were several important themes that came through, and I think this is relevant because they may not have come through the just statistical data. Many of the people sharing the stories discussed how the activities made them feel a real sense of connection within the community, that whilst they'd previously felt lonely and isolated, often due to health and mobility issues, with the support from carers and volunteers, they were able to attend and socialise. This was such a significant improvement for many people, making new friends and opportunity to catch up with each other. And the stories really tell this in a very sort of emotive way. I think additionally, when individuals were not able to attend, volunteers would deliver cake and food boxes to the people on their doors, which also provided that opportunity for a chat on the doorstep and allowing them to remain connected. And again, this is an area that's really difficult to quantify, but for a person, that chat on the doorstep once a week with a piece of cake meant so much to them and really changed their experiences. The second element, which some of you may be familiar with, is that some of the storytellers were volunteers rather than attendees, and they discussed the positive impact the project had had upon their own well-being. And we see this in many places where there are mutual benefits, and the distinction of who is the supporter and who is being supported is often blurred, and the volunteers all sort of pay testament to that. So thinking about the use of MSc in these two contexts, I'm going to give a bit of a view about them. So the advantages, MSc, it's an approach that can capture some of that nuance and sort of context-specific change that quantitative data alone might miss. When it's combined, it can create a really comprehensive evidence base for decision-making. MSc is participatory. It involves community members themselves in the process of identifying and sharing their stories. This approach aligns with the principles of community-centred evaluations, or using lived experience, it's a term that's becoming more used, so giving a voice to those directly affected and ensuring that the evaluation reflects the community or individual's perspective, needs and aspirations. Insight. Community-centred approaches are often highly context-dependent. The MSc approach can really help understand why certain changes occurred and the unique circumstances that contributed to them, as the statement earlier about the particular health scare and how that had affected their experience of the course. Recommendations. Recommendations are often grounded in real-life experiences, making them sort of tangible and perhaps more relevant and actionable for people implementing programmes and in commissioning. And finally, it engages stakeholders. It involves parties in a reflective process and fosters a sense of ownership and accountability. But there are some inevitable downsides. So whilst it can be a valuable tool, sometimes MSc relies heavily on subjective narrative and stories from participants and stakeholders. This can make it challenging to draw very definitive conclusions and may not provide the level of evidence required for certain funding or policy decisions, especially when there are small cohorts. The circles of support, there were 9 stories, and within the Wellbeing Newport, there were 12. It's very focused. Could be a plus, could be a sort of disadvantage, but it often generates very context and community-specific insights, which might not be easily transferable to other settings. MSc can be time and resource intensive. Collecting, analysing and interpreting narratives and stories can be very resource intensive, and this might not always be practical where there are constraints on budget, time or personnel. Interpreting stories can be complex. It requires some skill sometimes to analyse and synthesise the narratives accurately. Different interpretations can arise from the same stories. We all hear things differently, leading to potential bias or misinterpretation. We don't hear stories in the same way, and we enjoy and value different types. I like happy ending stories generally about dogs and flowers, and I'm not really wild about murder mysteries or sort of complex thrillers, so I would interpret something very differently. A limited emphasis on negative changes. When we're telling stories, we often like to tell the positives, and I think MSc is no different. so it may not adequately address or capture the sort of unintended consequences or the negatives that come through. And finally, a limit to the capacity to tell a story. Not everyone wants to share or has capacity, and this can result in a skewed representation of changes and may exclude the perceptions of some groups. In summary, MSc can be a really valuable tool when used in combination with other evaluation methods to understand the impact of community-centred approaches to health and well-being. There are 2 quotes here to finish with, which brings home really why stories are important. So, our species thinks in metaphors and learns through stories. Storytelling is the essential human activity. The harder the situation, the more essential it is. I'm very happy to, always happy to talk further, maybe not detect my voice is going, or answer questions. Our work is on the website, and look forward to some further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessie. Thank you for that. Any questions in the room before we go online? Jessie?
There must be one question. Go on, somebody.
Online that we need to have. Any Q&A, I think? No, okay. There is one at the back. We've got a rescued position for you, Jessie. She wants to tell you a story from the back of the room.
Oh, brilliant.
Just 1 second. We're running now. That's.
Oh, great. Action.
That's a bit worrying, isn't it? Thank you.
The last couple of days of how hearing people's stories has been really, really crucial to various projects to help them to understand the impact of what they're doing. And I was picking up on the point that you made, that it can be hard to quantify the stories and use them as hard evidence for funders. And that we're still being asked, aren't we, to prove the cost benefit or to prove the numbers. And when you're talking about some numbers, or you're talking about very specific context-rich situations, that can be hard. Do you think, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you think that there's something that we can do to change some of that, change the minds of people to understand that actually hearing people's lived experience can be as valuable, if not more valuable, than people may realise at the moment? Is there anything that you're looking at from communities that they really want their voices to be heard over and above some of the existing ways of measuring impact in communities?
Thank you for that question. And I think it's probably the elephant in the room, really, is how do we actually create the space, or do we create the opportunities where those lived experiences and those stories can be valued in the same way? And I think some of it's about having the conversation in the first place, having, for example, this moment now to be able to talk about it. Some of it is around the infrastructure. Some of it is around when we're talking to funders, when we're talking to commissioning teams, that opportunity, that space is there in how we're reporting. I think some of it's around skills, some of it's around resources on both sides to be able to accept that. My organisation Together for Change have done quite a lot of work in this area in looking at what some of those mechanisms can be to ensure that those stories are valuable. And I'd be very happy to talk with you. Very happy to talk with you further. I appreciate it's not the fullest of answers. And probably reflects not feeling so great today, but I think there is a tide of change, and I think some of it's at policy level, and some of it's at grassroots level, and some of it's about joining the dots in the middle, and ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to be able to engage in the process. Thank you for your question, though.
Thank you, Jessie, and I think you're right. definitely that if there isn't a tide of change, there needs to be. And that's a really good point. I think what we'll do now is let you go, because I think your voice is going and you're not feeling so good anyway. But thank you ever so much for attending and presenting online today, and I hope you get better soon. So
thank you
very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are going to have to pause for about 4 minutes now, because we need the other rooms to catch up with us. So if we'll pull back together again in about 3 or 4 minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh.
As I'm told. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if we could take your seats, please, that would be great. Otherwise, I shall get told off again, and I've had enough of that. This 2 days of being told off is. You mean I make you sound like an ogre? Anyway, that's great. And what a way to end the day. Oh, you don't know that yet, but anyway, we'll see. Okay, if we could take our seats, that would be good. Aren't I polite? Amazing how polite I am, really. Those who work with me wouldn't say that too many times, but there we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, plenary 4, day 2. We are nearing the conclusion of this annual conference, and Pat Nunn is here, Music Anywhere, to help us understand the benefits of music and arts in health in terms of health and social care. So, Kat, I'm going to hand over to you with no more ado, and I'll play the organ.
Oh, please. Well, diolch yn fawr, Bob. Thank you very, very much for having me today. And dibyn bach Cymraeg. So I apologise profusely that I can't present to you in both Welsh and English, but trust me, you wouldn't want me to. But I'm absolutely tippy-tappy, absolutely delighted to be here. So my name is Kat Nunn. I set up Music Anywhere roughly a year ago. So we're a really shiny new organisation. But I come from a background of health and social care. So I have worked as a service manager with Mencap Cymru. I have worked within all sorts of third sector organisations. I used to manage a health watch over in England. So, you know, I'm fairly well versed, and I started off, my mum was a nurse, and so I started off as a carer actually in my teens. So I've worked in and around health and social care, never within the NHS directly, for a really long time, far more years than I care to remember. I'm now the very proud chair of Mid and North Powys Mind, to whom I, of course, spread the word of music, and set this wonderful organisation up with the support of a great board of very local people. I live up in North Powys, and so we really only currently serve Mid and North Powys because, you know, it's tricky, especially in the current funding landscape. Lord knows why I chose to do this craziness in the middle of funding cuts left, right and centre, but I did. And I came from an organisation called Music in Hospitals and Care. And so it's very much an arts in health approach. And you're thinking to yourself, what is arts in health? I think this quote from Oliver Sacks is one of the most beautiful quotes that I can offer you. Music can lift us out of depression or move us to tears. It is a remedy, a tonic, orange juice for the ear. But for many of my neurological patients, music is even more. It can provide access, even when no medication can, to movement, to speech, to life. For them, music is not a luxury, but a necessity. And I'm here to tell you that the arts are an intrinsic part of who we are. You are all sat here in clothes that someone has had to design, a building that someone has had to design. We're looking at, you know, beautiful banners that someone has had to design. That's the arts, the environment we're in, the songs that we sing. It's all our wonderful artistic expression. And of course, in Wales, we have that enshrined in the Future of the Wellbeing of Generations Act. So we know that for those people who come after us, we hope they have a culture that is preserved and enhanced and bettered through all the things that we do right now. So I talk about the arts in this broad sense, but of course it's all many, many things. And for me, of course, music is my thing. I've been singing forever. I have a degree in commercial music, sadly not, not lovely music performance or indeed coming from an arts and health perspective. But I'm a singer. I've always been. You're going to be too later on, believe it or not. And I'm glad that everyone got up and had a little move around actually just then, because it all helps us warm up a bit. So the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And when we think of the arts, when we think of what that offers us, we're not thinking about clinical outcomes, although they are there. We're not thinking about those bigger and broader social and wellbeing outcomes, although they are there. They give us a very individual way to talk about ourselves, to identify, to find our people, to go out and, you know, as a young person who hasn't hung out and gone, oh yeah, like, have you heard like this new track